The idea that saving your money is a good thing is a fallacious idea. Let me explain. If you were to save $100,000 in 2016, in July of 2016, a year from then, July 2017, that $100,000 would be worth $1,672.59 less than it was in July of 2016. This is because the rate of inflation for the year between 2016, July of 2016, and July of 2017 was 1.7%. Therefore, the idea that saving your money is a good idea is at least somewhat fallacious, because it costs 1.7% of your saved money a year to save your money. Now, of course, you can take off of that number the amount of money you get from your savings account, the interest you gain from your savings account. So if you're lucky and you have a savings account that pays you 1% a year, well, then it's only costing you 0.7%. That's still, however, nearly $700 to save $100,000, which, to my mind, is quite a bit of money. Okay, so another fallacious idea that there is that inflation is due to economic growth. Nope. Inflation is not due to economic growth. In fact, when you have all things being equal, when you have economic growth, you get deflation, an increase in the amount of money, or an increase in the value of your money, rather. So if you were to save $100,000 and there was deflation going on, that would mean that you could purchase a lot more with your $100,000 than you would be able to purchase the year prior, which would be a wonderful thing. In fact, if that went on, that would mean that people would save quite a bit of their money. I mean, they would put it in the banks, and then the banks would lend it out, and there'd be plenty of people who wanted to start up businesses or anything like that that would be happy to purchase loans from this bank. Okay, so the idea that inflation is caused by economic growth is a fallacious idea. The idea right now, when we have inflation going on, as we have for quite a long time, that to save your money is a good idea, is also fallacious. No, if you want to save your money, what you have to do is you have to invest your money at a rate that is going to give you a return that is greater than inflation, so maybe 2 or 3%. I mean, if you're lucky, you can make rates like 7%, but that's, I mean, you have to be really good at investing your money. And it's just probably not going to happen. Over time, it's not going to happen. That's difficult to do. Okay, so unless, of course, you know some crazy investor and you want to give me a tip, I'm open to that on where to invest my money. That can gain me 7% interest. That would be pretty sweet. Okay, so where does inflation come from then? If it doesn't come from economic activity, where does it come from? Well, it would come from a decrease in the size of the economy. That's one way to get inflation. The economy decreases. Or there's an increase in the amount of money, or in the money supply, in relation to the size of the economy. So, if the economy grows and the money size, or the amount of money stays the same, the money supply stays the same, roughly the same, then you will get deflation. The economy grows and the money supply increases at the same rate, then you won't get anything. You'll have stagnation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Or if the money supply increases and the size of the economy increases, but the money supply increases at a greater rate than the economy increases, then you will get inflation. Or, of course, you could have the same money supply and the economy decreases. Okay, so that's where you get inflation from. An increase in the amount of money there is in the economy in a greater proportion to that which the economy grew at. Okay, so where do we get an increase in the amount of money in the economy? Well, if we were on the gold standard, it would come from a greater amount of gold in the economy. But that's not what we're on. We're not on a gold standard, so that's not where it comes from. I may have misunderstood the gold standard just a little bit there. There's probably a little bit more to it than that, but that's one way you could do it. So, some people would say, here's another idea that's fallacious, that inflation comes from the banks lending out money. That idea is also fallacious because in order for a bank to lend out money, other people have to put their money in the bank. So the banks can only lend out money that actually already exists in the money supply. Unless, of course, there's this other bank that exists that can, at their own will, decide to purchase securities from the private banks and thus make it possible for the banks to lend out more money than they actually could normally lend out. That would cause inflation. Now, the argument for why the Federal Reserve, and this is the bank we're talking about, or any kind of central bank like that, would do such a thing is that the central bank wants to make it possible for economic growth to happen. So they cause inflation, the argument goes. They cause inflation in order to make it that the economy will grow. Right? So it's not that economic growth causes inflation. Their argument is that inflation causes economic growth, in the sense that once you cause inflation, it will also cause this growth in the economy. But think about this for a minute. I saved $100,000, let's say. And every year that $100,000 sits there, that $100,000 is worth 1.7% less. And then every year. That's a lot. That's a lot of money that's being evaporated out of my account. And also you have to think, if I put that money in the bank, that means that the bank's lending it out and they're making money, right? They're lending it out at, let's say, 3%. I mean, that's a really low interest rate, but let's say 3 to 5% or something like that. They lend it out at 3 to 5%. And so they're staying ahead of inflation. So the money I'm putting in is making the bank money, which is fine. I mean, that's the contract you have with your bank, because, you know, you have insurance against your money being stolen, right? And so it's being lent out. And yet the amount of money that's in my account is going down. Now, of course, it still says $100,000. It's just that that $100,000 is worth that much less, 1.7% less. And that's troublesome. Now, another thing that happens is that if you work for, let's say, $10 an hour, if you don't make 17 cents more at the end of the year than you did right now, you're actually getting a pay decrease. You at least have to make 1.7% more every year, or you're making less money than you did the year before, provided that the inflation rate stays at 1.7%. So the purpose of this video is to be somewhat informative, and also to challenge you with the question of, what do you think about inflation? Do you think it's necessary to lose that much money every year in order to get economic growth? Oh, and by the way, economic growth. Where does economic growth come from? Well, it either comes from more people working, more hours spent in the economy, or through innovation and technological advance, right? So things become cheaper to produce. That's where you get economic growth from, provided that the same amount of people are working and everything like that. Or you get something crazy happen, like you have like a bumper crop or something like that. But provided that things remain pretty much the same, that the cost of things remain the same, the way to get economic growth is by bringing down the costs of production, becoming more efficient at producing. Making people work more hours certainly will bring economic growth, but it's not the same as getting technological advances and innovation. So yeah, my question again, is it really worth what we're paying in order to have this economic growth? And my other question is who are the real people that are benefiting by inflation? Because someone's coming out ahead of this. Someone is benefiting through this artificially caused inflation, and it isn't the person that's working and trying to save their money. I can tell you that. Thank you for watching, and please comment.